Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simple Electronics Podcast. I'm your host, Dan, from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. More about them a little bit later on. Sorry, my voice just cracked. It seems to be back, my shitty voice. It is getting better and better day to day, but, there is sometimes a little bit of regression. So please excuse the lost voice, and we can go on with this. So, where has the time gone? I feel like I was in front of my computer recording the last episode, like literally a couple days ago, but really it's been 2 weeks, and 2 weeks went by incredibly fast. So fast that I don't actually remember what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. I mean, there are a couple things. I know I did my final last jobs at the college in the mechanics department. The mechanics department is now fully shut down. We all lost our jobs, so we're not going to be teaching there anymore. However, the college has asked me to help a machinist's course, just to teach computers and mathematics, just basic trade stuff to the students coming in and learning that. So over the summer, I will get a little bit of income, which is really nice because, my car broke down. So that's another thing that has happened. I was working for my mobile mechanics job. We had to source a bushing, and I had found one at a plumbing supply store, a piece of brass pipe, essentially. And what we did is, he sent me out because he had the trailer and stuff pinned. So I took my car, left, went to get the bushing, and like 3 blocks from the job site, my clutch line exploded. So the clutch master cylinder, where you apply your pressure, pressurizes some brake fluid and transmits that to the transmission release bearing. Well, that hydraulic line blew. So it could have been way worse. My boss just towed me home, essentially. And now I'm waiting 7 to 10 business days for a part from Volvo. Fantastic. No aftermarket replacement. So, yes, that definitely made the time pass a little bit slower. So that's definitely where some time went. I also went up to my parents' cottage to open it up, did a little bit of fishing. It was quite nice. That's about it on the personal front. So let's switch into YouTube stuff. So on the YouTube front, I want to talk about framing videos. And I don't mean the video framing, like when your device is just out of frame so that your viewers cannot see what you're doing. I'm more talking about how you tell the story of making YouTube videos. So, as most of you know, our YouTube niche is kind of, well, exactly that. It's kind of niche. There's very few people who enjoy hobby electronics, even though a lot of what we do in electronics has sort of like sweeping consequences in a whole bunch of other fields. For example, talking about driving motors. Well, only really interesting to a certain subset of people. However, driving stepper motors sort of like branches out into the CNC world or the 3D printing world, or, all sorts of things like that. And I've been thinking a lot about framing because if you go look at a whole bunch of successful YouTubers, most successful videos, actually, I'll specifically say successful electronics YouTubers' most successful videos, they tend to be framed in a much more general way. Like, for example, my best performing video is, my 2 best, in fact, is one is how to charge a drill battery without a charger. And that is kind of like, sort of like basic electronics, right? It's really about, how a constant current, constant voltage charger works and how you can emulate it without having the specific charger. It's at its base, it's very electronicsy, but after that, if you go a little bit wider, it's really about people who have power drills and either forgot their charger or don't have chargers. That's a much broader sort of appeal. It's a much broader interest than, than specifically the electronics portion of it. And if you look at, really successful electronics YouTubers, probably the most successful of them would be like Electroboom, for example. Electroboom, he's able to sort of like cross the aisle. And the way he's able to cross the aisle is by appealing to the masses. So let me just look at his, highest viewed videos. So how to not make an electric guitar, the hazards of electricity. That's 21 million views on that video. But I think that video is more about the comedy, right? He's really good at what he does to make his content entertaining. The second one is making a Jacob's ladder to celebrate 1 million subs. Actually, that one I'm not quite sure why it's so popular. I wonder if that's because that's the video that he nearly killed himself on, with the high voltage. So that one I'm not really sure, but the third one is making a heated seat, and you see, an electrode stuck to his butt, which really did happen in the video. And so if you look at his videos, yes, he's doing electronicsy type things, electronicsy projects, electrical projects, but really his videos are more catered to a broad audience because they are just plain entertaining. They're just really good to watch. If we look at Dave Jones's videos, for example, his most viewed video is the op amps tutorial, which is really cool. 2.8 million views on an op amp tutorial. I have no idea how he reached such an audience. I don't see how 2.8 million enthusiasts and are there 2.8 million electronics engineers? That seems like a lot of people trying to learn about op amps. But I know personally, I've watched that video 5 or 6 times. So maybe that's what people are doing. They're watching it the first time, still not understanding, because that's what happened to me, and then rewatching. Maybe that's it. But his second most viewed video is how to entertain a nerd. And that's, that's a minute and a half. So again, more about entertainment. His third most viewed video is world's most expensive hard drive teardown. So again, much broader appeal. Mind you, still a narrow niche because technology is not as broad as some topics can be, but still more broad than electronics, right? Let's check out someone like Big Clive as well. BigClive.com. So his most viewed video is a simple guide to electronic components. That's fantastic. Next one is the most deadly project on the internet. Again, deadly and project. And then his thumbnail is this will kill you. And he's holding the microwave transformer. So again, really broad appeal. Now we're not talking about electronics. We're talking about makery type things. The third most viewed is the lamps you're not allowed to have. Exploring Dubai lamps. So stuff, you're not allowed. And then there's like seemingly regular lamps on the thumbnail. So you see like the videos are electronics, but they're framed in a little bit more broad appeal. And I'm talking about this because I'm sort of working my way around to the fact that I got a little carried away before I knew I lost my job at the college. And I found, in fact, my boss found and mentioned it to me, lithium batteries, 12-volt lithium batteries that were on sale. In fact, he mentioned one, which was a generic 12-volt lithium battery that I paid very little for, in the order of just over 200 Canadian dollars. So not a lot. And I thought this would be great for my channel because people love lithium batteries. So I'll do sort of an unboxing, and then I'll use it for my boat trolling motor. But we'll do tests and all sorts of things. I have load testers and whatever. And so I did. I ordered it and I did the video, and it didn't get that many views. But I mean, it is what it is. I don't post enough on my channel to get a lot of views. But then a specific lithium battery made specifically for trolling motors. I don't know why it's specifically for trolling motors, but it has low temperature protection. It came up on sale even cheaper, under $200. And so now this is a ridiculous deal, $200 Canadian for under $200 Canadian, taxes included, for a 12-volt, 100 amp hour battery is insane. So I bought a second one. And now I have a second lithium battery that I want to make a video on, but it's just been sitting in the box. It's not even unboxed yet because I'm not quite sure how to frame the video to be different from the other one. So the other one, I just unboxed it, took a look at it, charged it up, seen how much charge it took, from its storage charge, discharged it all the way till shut off, and then charged it back up, recorded the settings, recorded the capacity, and then that's kind of a good first look video. But this second one, I'm not going to do the exact same video again. I mean, I think that's a little bit insanity. I think it's a better deal. I think people should know about it. I think, people should know that they can look out for sales and they'll get a lithium battery for cheaper than a lead acid battery. I do want to do, testing with both those batteries with a power inverter and do cool things like weld with them and stuff like that. But that's not really in the purview of a first look battery. I need to make sure that this battery is in good shape. So then I thought, how can I reframe this? Well, the first battery that I bought, I'm testing. I don't know if you remember, I have a JunkTech, JUNKTEC, electronic shunt, basically a smart shunt. So essentially it's a shunt that goes between the negative terminal and your load. And it has a sort of control box that you plug the shunt into. And then you have a screen that you plug into the control box. And then it tells you your, the amount of time till empty, your current draw, your voltage, all that kind of stuff. So it's a cool tool. It's only about like $65 or so. And it's really worthwhile to put it together, because then you have sort of like your stats. Some lithium batteries, commercial lithium batteries, they'll come with like a Bluetooth app, and they'll have a shunt integrated, and then you can just scan it and, scan a QR code, download an app, and then it does similar things, but you do need your cell phone with you, right? There's no display on it. I found a new version of the JunkTech Smart Shunt, and my idea is I'm going to frame the video as a, instead of as a, let's make sure, how much capacity it has and how the voltage lasts and whatever. I think I'm going to frame the video as what to do when you receive your lithium battery, or how to prepare a new lithium battery or something like that. I need to sort of like brainwave the thumbnail, but essentially when you buy a lithium battery from a retailer like Amazon or whatever, actually anybody, anyone that's not one of the big players, like if you're not buying a battery that costs you $1,000 and it comes with all the warranties and made in America and whatever, when you buy a cheaper battery, you need to make sure that that battery is in good shape. And in fact, I would also, tell people that it's okay not to have the more expensive battery with the shunt built in. So my idea is, when you get your new battery, what you should do is you should first check the voltage, because if the voltage is too low, then, you need to send it back. It's probably damaged, like if it's below sort of like 10 volts. And then you should get a battery box. You put it in a battery box so it's nice and portable. And then you should install, or you can install, a smart shunt. So I feel like that is going to be a way for me to make a video about a lithium battery after I just made a video about a lithium battery, and possibly frame it in such a way that more people will watch the video. Because I'm really coming up against a wall here where sort of like the channel isn't really growing at the same pace that it used to grow. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still very proud of my YouTube channel. I'm still getting, roughly, more or less like, I don't know, 400 per month or so new subscribers, something like that, 200 to 400. But it's not a lot. It's very slow growth. And the thing is, to make a video that, 5,000 people will watch is the same effort as making a video that 2 people will watch. So I guess my thought is, I need to start framing my videos in a little bit more of a broader sense. And if you're listening to this podcast and you are, the type that wants to share their opinions, I would like to know your opinion. If I have to re-explain basic concepts over and over and over in each video that it applies to, is that going to upset you? Is that going to be something that you don't want to listen to anymore because of the fact that you already know this stuff? Is this the kind of thing that I should avoid because the regular viewers that I have, they already know what Ohm's law is, for example? Or do you think it's going to be okay if I just explain it quickly? I'm just trying to get a sense of the sentiment. If I'm trying to reach a new audience, am I going to upset my old audience? Now, it's a bit weird asking you guys who are guys and, something like 5% women. Hello, ladies. It's a bit weird asking you folks here on the podcast your opinion on this kind of stuff, because the truth is, if you listen to the podcast, you are sort of like above average in agreeableness with the channel. Like the people who watch the podcast or listen to the podcast is really a small subset of my overall channel. Like I get more riffraff on regular videos. On the podcast, there's nearly none. So your opinions are valid, but, keep in mind, put yourself in the feet of a normie who came to the channel to take a look at their, at how to set up a lithium battery for the first time. And I do want to be concise, but I do want to be all encompassing. I'm basically trying to make every couple of videos that I put out, maybe every 3 or 4 or 5 videos, to be much more broadly watched. And hopefully that brings in the subscribers. Hopefully that drives affiliate revenue. And hopefully that brings in more sponsorships to try to offset the lower income I'll be getting because the college is sort of no more for me. Let me know what you think about that. Should I reframe my videos, or should I just continue doing, what I want and not putting too much thought into it? By the way, if you're hearing a tree frog in the background, that is because the pool in my backyard has become a swamp. I've been really busy. So has my wife. Actually, she's been way busier than me. And we're a little slow at opening the pool this year. By the way, just because you can afford a house with a pool in it doesn't mean you can afford a house with a pool in it. Biggest mistake of our lives is buying a house with a pool. But anyways, point is, if you hear a frog in the background and the AI hasn't removed it, it's because we're slow at opening the pool and we're still working on it. Using my scatterbrain to go right back to that Junk Tech smart shunt, the new one that I got. So first of all, it's a little bit weird because Junk Tech has a couple of different SKUs, and it's not really obvious which ones are which. So the SKUs come in like, let's see. So I bought the KM110F, which is 100 amps, and it's the KM series. What's cool about it is that the brain box is integrated into the shunt, so you don't have a separate shunt and brain box. But if you look up their product line, those two words, the KM, there's a few different ones, and in fact, they don't even list it on all of their devices. But they have a couple different ones, and they use, you know what? I don't even know what the difference is between them. There is one listing that they have that shows, that one has a brain box, the other one has it integrated in the shunt, another one has like a different display, but it's so confusing because their one product to another doesn't have a lot of variation. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how like the KM and the KF are differentiated. Like, I see the KL doesn't even have a screen because you're supposed to connect your smartphone by Bluetooth to the shunt. However, you have to sideload an app. So that's a little sketchy. I don't know if I'd want to do that. But then there's like the KG, which is kind of like what I had. And there's like a whole bunch. There's like two different listings for the KM. It's very weird, very Apple-like of them to make very similar products and have very similar names, but have almost no difference between them, or no discernible way to know the difference. It's just, you just have to, I guess, know. There's also like a BL, which has a smaller screen, but like, is it only the screen? I don't know. I have no idea. These Chinese companies, one of the biggest sort of downfall, the biggest difference between like the Chinese companies and like a higher end Chinese company or a higher end company in general, is that they don't really have the user experience. They don't really have a refined touch. They don't really have, concepts of product differentiation. Like, you'll see a company like NVIDIA, they'll just make the same graphics card. And if one doesn't pass QC, they just bin it. They like disable cores, they disable features, they desolder RAM, and then they sell it as a different part number. They purposely have a big valley between, the top of the line graphics card and the next one down, and that one and the next one down. But in Chinese products, it's just kind of like, I don't know, we designed this. You want to buy this? We also designed this. You want to buy that? Like, it's just, you get what you get. So that's kind of interesting, but also a little bit frustrating when you're hunting for something very specific. However, I will report that it is relatively inexpensive. So the smart shunts are anywhere between like sort of 45 and 65, 75 Canadian dollars, unless you want a really big shunt. So I think, in American, that's what, I don't know, like 35 to $50, something like that. Depends on what Mr. Taco's done today. However, like for that price, I think it's worth picking up for pretty much anybody that does any power related projects, because then you can have something permanently connected to your, I don't know, to your motor or whatever, or to your battery like I do. And then you always have the stats. You don't necessarily need to pull out your test gear to take a look at what's going on inside your product. You can just connect it permanently. So that's pretty good. The other thing though, I do need to check is the parasitic draw of these devices. So I have a sneaking suspicion on my other lithium battery that the parasitic draw, like the amount of current that this device, the smart shunt, uses while the power is off, is significant. So I'm thinking maybe in the, tens of milliamps, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but over time could discharge your battery. So I'm going to probably make a video explaining that as well, and why you probably want like a hard disconnect switch. But the only problem then is that you can't check your battery voltage by, waking up the screen. The screen will be dead. So I guess you kind of got to take the good with the bad. But on the other hand, if you do have a lithium battery with a built-in shunt, you can't disconnect it. You do not have the benefit of disconnecting the battery completely. And so that's even more important to check and charge up your batteries from time to time. Now, in a lithium battery, the BMS should shut off the battery completely to prevent it from being drained all the way. However, if you have like a lead acid battery, you're going to murder that lead acid battery. It only has a couple of times going down to almost no voltage before it is permanently damaged. The plates get sulfated. So it's just another thing to keep in mind there. Moving on. So as I often do when I have no time to do productive stuff, I typically, need some chill time. So I watch podcasts and whatever. But as I watch podcasts, when I have less time, I typically go shopping. So, window shopping for the most part. But I've been browsing AliExpress, and I have come across something I found quite interesting. I believe I have found the cheapest action camera that you can potentially buy. There were some listed for a little bit cheaper, but they said they don't ship to my location. I think that's when AliExpress has like odd reshipping warehouses. Like they'll have them in like the Czech Republic or in Brazil. And so if you happen to be in those countries, then specific listings really only apply to you. But I picked up a 4K Ultra HD action camera. I believe 4K is the name. I don't think it does 4K. I think it does 1080p. But it's an action camera and a battery and a couple of basic accessories, and I paid a grand total of $12.19 Canadian for them. And it was, shipped on the choice, which means it has the fast shipping. So I have in my possession a, less than $13 action camera, and it showed up in a package that was all destroyed. So it's going to be really interesting to see if it's going to be, any good at all. But I think it'll make an interesting video to try out this camera. Now, I'm under no illusions that it's going to be the best quality. I don't think so at all. In fact, if you go into the reviews, even though it says 4K action camera, people, show you a screenshot that it only takes 1080 video. But I'm fine with that. I'm completely fine with that. I just want like a second angle or, that kind of thing. Even if it works as a webcam, then that's good. I'll just hook it up to one of the 3D printers and it can work as a webcam for the 3D printer. I am really not expecting great things from this, but the fact that you get like a camera, a waterproof housing, a battery, and some like GoPro style mounts and clips for $12 and some cents, I think that's pretty incredible. And even though I wouldn't recommend it as anybody's like main camera, your smartphone is like 100 times better than this thing is ever going to be. I still think it's really interesting that they can sell these things for that price point. Now, checking again, I see that the listing has gone up. I think it's $17. So it has gone up in price. Oh, but I see there's another one for $10. Yeah, $9.79. So yeah, you can get it for, a couple bucks cheaper than that. So under $10 Canadian. So that's going to be the hook for the video where I'm going to test this thing out. We're going to see how it looks, but don't hold your breath.
Just a quick interruption to talk about this episode's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay has been a long-term sponsor of the channel, and I think they're a good match for my channel because they provide quality PCBs for a reasonable price. You can get boards manufactured up to 100 mils by 100 mils for just $5, including shipping to Canada, $15 US, including shipping to USA, $12 US, which is incredibly cheap for professionally manufactured PCBs. I can personally attest to the quality of these PCBs, and so if you want a circuit immortalized forever, check out PCBWay.com with the link in the description. Now back to the conversation.
But that brings me to a place where I do want your participation, because there are some reasons I won't go into at the moment, but I probably talked about it in my live streams quite a bit. But I want to know what you think is the best sort of tool. Yeah, I think it has to be classed really as a tool, but what's the best tool that you can buy for electronics use for under 500 Canadian dollars? So let's think about it as about 350 American dollars. So I was shopping AliExpress, obviously, and I found a couple of listings where you can get a nice trinocular microscope. So that's the optical, you've got the two optical lenses that go up to your eyeballs. And then you've got a third optical lens that you hook up a camera onto. And it comes with an articulated arm, two sections of arm, plus a desk mount. You either screw it into your desk or you clamp it into your desk. And it's got a whole bunch of different lenses and objectives, and it comes with a ring light. And with the shipping, it is under 350 American dollars, 500 Canadian dollars. It's no EEV blog style Tagano microscope or anything like that. But I think that's probably my best bet for probably the best bang for the buck under $500 worth of tool. Because I feel like a soldering microscope with a large range like that, with the binocular function where you can actually see depth perception and you can record what you're doing, I think for under $500, that is insanely affordable. Like, obviously it's not for everyone, but hey, if let's say you do this as a hobby and you help people out, you can fix, equipment worth multiples of that, so it could be paid off in like one shot, essentially. But for me, the microscope is needed because companies have sent me microscopes. In fact, a company reached out wanting to send me another microscope, and we agreed on the deal and they never sent it. But my problem with most of the microscopes that have a single camera and no optical feature, and they have a screen built in, is that you can either, look at the screen and, record the video locally, or you can use HDMI out and look at it on, capture it with a capture card on your computer or put it to another monitor. But the monitor that's built into the device, it actually shuts off. So that means if my audience can see, and especially this is important on live streams, but if my audience can see what I'm doing, then I can't see what I'm doing. Or I can see what I'm doing and record it and show my audience later, I guess. But none of those are particularly good options. And so this trinocular microscope is probably something I'm going to end up buying towards the end of the year if I see that my finances have been going well. Don't hold your breath on that one. But again, like I said, when I don't have time to make videos, I tend to go shopping. So that's what you get. And speaking of shopping, I also want to remind you that I have the form you can fill out for the 1-day challenge. So just to remind you, at some point when the weather is crap, so either that'll be in fall or at some point in the summer when the weather really is, rainy or stormy or whatever, where I can't go fishing, can't go for like a long hike can't do anything outside. I'm planning on doing a stream, 1-day stream, probably a 12-hour stream, something like 7 in the morning, 7 at night, or 8 in the morning to 8 at night, where I have to build a project from start to finish using only the stuff I have in my workshop. That means, hot glue and, whatever construction. I can 3D print things, but, I only have 12 hours. So I have to be efficient with my use of time. And the project that I have to build will be selected by either a person or a committee that I won't be privy to. I'll select the committee, but not the project. And so essentially I start the stream, a volunteer that went through the projects that were suggested by the audience chooses one at random or chooses whichever one they want, and they tell me what it is, and then I have all day to do it. But I will do it constantly on a live stream. So that is the idea, and the ideas for the projects to build only in 1 day is all submitted by you guys. So there's the form. I'm going to try to put it in the description. It's getting really late at night as I'm recording this, so no guarantees. Just ping me if I forget to put it in the description. But you go in that Google Forms and you just fill it in with an idea that you think would be fun, a challenge for me to build in 1 day with only the stuff I have here. Please be realistic. If you want me to make, a entropy defeating machine, it's not going to happen. And whoever is sorting through the suggestions, they will just delete that right away. But put your suggestions in there. Use your imagination because I'm the one who selects whether or not, or maybe the audience can select whether or not I've achieved, I've actually done what I set out to do. But essentially, I decide when I'm done. So just use your imagination, do things that are doable, try to go easy on the coding. Although even if coding is too difficult, I'll just use ChatGPT, not the end of the world. So yeah, fill that in. At the moment, I've got 4 submissions. I don't know what they are because again, I'm not going to look at them until I'm told what the project is. And in fact, the ones that don't get selected might stay, in that form, and maybe I'll do 2 or 3 of these live streams if you guys like them. Live streams will be on the main channel rather than the live streaming channel because I think it's interesting enough to do a main channel live stream, and then pretty much going to take some time and, cut the final thing together into like a 20-30 minute video, which is going to be interesting with 12 hours of video. So usually shot at 4K as well. So yeah, make sure you go down in the description and you fill in that form if you want to participate. I think the last thing to report before I have to give up, because my voice is getting worse and worse as this episode goes on, the breaks I have to take between my stories has to increase as well. So the last thing to report is I've ordered some stuff to build a NAS, so a network attached storage, essentially a internet connected, or sorry, a LAN connected storage solution, which is really a cool concept that you can take something like a Google Drive, for those normies out there, and sort of make it local and only accessible on your own network. I'm pretty excited about making a video about this. So I've ordered the motherboard, and my wife and I, since my wife is also a content creator, we're going to pool our resources and order 3 hard drives, because I think 3 is the recommended minimum. And the software I'll be using is called HexOS. So for those of you who are a little bit more, network techie nerds, HexOS is sort of like a not free implementation of a free piece of software. So it runs off TrueNAS Scale, which I think is completely free, but it requires you to be quite technically inclined in order to set it up properly. I just don't have the bandwidth to learn, this many things all the time already. Just learning stuff enough to make YouTube videos on them is quite taxing. So I don't want to go and make a custom configuration of a NAS. So HexOS is a simplification of TrueNAS Scale for at-home use for normies, to be able to set it up on a very simple interface, completely offline. And I was an early adopter, so I bought a license at only $100, and that license is good for life. There is nothing that will be, unavailable to me at that $100 license, except for the stuff that requires their cloud servers. So if you want to do cloud backups on their servers, if you want to chat with a live tech support, stuff like that, that won't be included. But at $100 for essentially getting something that it'll be 20 minutes to set up, and it's going to be guiding me all the way through, for a system that will not require me to do a bunch of Googling and AIing and whatever to set up my stuff properly. I think $100 for a lifetime license is a bargain. So now the early adopter sort of zone has left us. Now it's still in beta, so it's not in full release. So you can still get a type of early adopter special, but now instead of $100, it's $200. And I believe once it leaves beta, if you want to buy a license, it's $350, something like that. And then obviously there's plans to pay monthly if you want more services. So if you're interested in an at-home backup for your data, all your information, stuff like that, go buy the license right now. For me, it was pretty simple. I just bought a N150, Intel N150 NAS motherboard off AliExpress. I think it cost about $250, which includes the motherboard, the CPU itself, the RAM, and the storage. And all that you need then is 3 hard drives. They're going to be about $250 each. So if you think about it, it's $1,000 infrastructure project, right? Divided between my wife and I, because we're just going to use it for business purpose anyways. So $1,000, when you add the $100 for the lifetime license, it kind of becomes negligible. What I'm really looking forward to on HexOS, the software I'm going to be using, is that they are facilitating a way for you to have your own network storage at home, and then you can have a friend have their own network storage at their house, and then you can each allocate a little bit of space to each other that is completely segmented and encrypted. So like, for example, I can give a friend of mine, a terabyte for like just important files, things you can't lose. And he can give me a terabyte. But when he puts his data on my backup server here, I can't access it. There's no way for me to access it, even with the top level admin privileges and vice versa. So that means you can have an offsite backup with your friends, and theoretically, it would only cost you building your NAS, them building their NAS, and each of you having a license of HexOS. So this is not something that is ready to go right now, but that is one of the planned features that they're going to be adding. So that I'm pretty excited to do a video about making a basic at-home NAS. You can buy off-the-shelf NASs, but I like the flexibility of something custom. And as you can hear, my voice is leaving the chat, so I kind of have to end it here. Sorry, guys, for this short episode once again, but I have reached out to a few people for podcast invites, and we'll see if they hit me back up. But for now, I want to thank you guys all for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.